Welcome to the Friday Fundamentals Show, where we go deep on deep topics. Episode 4, Commitment.
With your host, Reed Dennis and Gracelyn Glazier of Fire Up Nation.
Fire Up Nation! TGIF, happy Friday and welcome to the Friday Fundamentals Show, where we go deep on deep topics. We're your hosts, Gracelyn Glazier and Reed Dennis. We're with Fire Up Nation, guys. And this is our episode 4, where we are diving deep on commitment. We've had quite a string of episodes in weeks 1, 2, and 3. We dove deep on love, on vision, and then most recently on listening. So Grayson, let me hear some gold from the listening episode. What you got?
Seek first to understand when you're listening and try to quiet that internal dialogue you got going and really be fully present and listening for the gold in what someone else has to say. I think often we all fall into the trap of listening so you can, respond and say your say, but if someone else is talking, to listen really well is to just be present and listen for the gold. And
what could I possibly do to listen for the gold and be present?
That's a great question, Reed. When listening, you can confirm your understanding or, dive deeper with questions, and then you can really grasp what the other person's saying.
Yeah, so there you go. Go check out episode 3, and now we're on episode 4, and I got quite a show lined up for you today, guys. Our guest is somebody really cool. I'm going to let Gracelyn introduce him.
I'd say he's pretty cool too. He is Paul Goldschmidt, first baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals, who also happens to be my amazing brother-in-law. So we're so happy to have him here, and he, I know, has a lot to say and knows a thing or two about commitment. So he is coming up later on our episode. What else do we have, Reed?
Gosh, of course, we got our hot minute in just a minute. Then we're going to turn commitment inside out. Of course, we got the interview with Paul. We're all excited about that. And then, of course, we're going to give you the fundamental 5 on commitment. So, without further ado, let's dive into commitment and get Gracelyn's hot minute.
Commitment carries this weight to it. It's like people know that when you say you're committed, you're giving 100% of you 100% of the time. It's not even a decision or a question. When you're fully committed to something, you're going to show up, you're going to take the steps, you're going to keep working at, fulfilling that promise and that commitment that you've made to yourself, to seeing it through. It may not always look how we expect it to. We may not have all the answers all the time, but we know with 100% certainty that at least when I give my commitment to something, I'm going to see it through to the best of my ability. I think that it provides a sense of freedom and knowing that I'm not giving myself a choice. I'm going in, all in, 100% of the time. And I think it's really powerful to recognize that commitments that I make to other people are important, and equally as important is the commitments that I make to myself, because both have an element of integrity that I'm not willing to give up. I am going to be true to my word and true to what it is inside my heart that I'm wanting to bring forth to the world.
When I commit, and I mean truly commit, to something inspired that came from within me, from my heart, versus something informed that came from outside me, that's not really something that is going to be fulfilling, for me. So those inspired commitments, those are a must for me. I'm 100% certain. I don't even have one toe out the door, because all that will do is sow seeds of confusion. And with commitment, there is no confusion. There's the decision to go full on, all in, be unwavering, be unmovable. My commitment is to empower others to live in love and not fear. I'm unshakable in that, and I'm unrelenting. And I keep taking the steps. I have faith in the little. It's the small commitments, and they accumulate into the larger direction of your commitment to yourself and to others, both equally important. And there's a quality. This shall be. Be committed. And so it is. If you're just now joining us, you're watching the Friday Fundamentals Show with Fire Up Nation. where we are diving deep on commitment in this episode 4. And it's that time of the show where we're going to turn commitment inside out. What that means is we look at commitment, kind of, what do you see out there in the world? What are others saying about the subject? What do we see in our own lives? And then just really assess that perspective and then flip it, right? So we go from the outside in to the inside out. What does commitment mean within us? What's in our hearts? What's that internal perspective? So with that, Graceland, let's talk about this. So, we all experience commitment in different ways. Kind of what are you seeing as one of the big elements of commitment at large, just out there in the world?
Yeah, I think a lot of people see commitment as, committing your time and your energy, but it's not necessarily something that you're personally 100% committed to, like seeing come to fruition no matter what, right? Like if you're all in, I don't really think that the way people commit their time and energy is that they're all into everything all the time. So I guess in short, it's like an overcommitment. I think a lot of people struggle with that, an overcommitment of their time and how they're spending it and all the energy they're putting into it. I think of, me when I was committed to my job and committed to spending time with my friends and my family, but what that looked like is I was running all around and not really committing to myself in the sense that, following what was made me happy, what I wanted to see come to fruition in my life. And so I think at large, I see a little bit of an overcommitment issue. And, on that note, the way we've talked about commitments is some of them are informed commitments and some of them are inspired commitments. And I kind of touched on it, but how do you see, taking the inspired commitment route being more empowering than the informed commitment?
Yeah, well, an inspired commitment is just kind of like what is coming from within you that you want to hold yourself accountable to, that you're going to have this kind of internal drive and fortitude with it. You're going to be unwavering because, it's actually something that you care about that came from your heart. And so it's like got this inherently fulfilling quality to it. Whereas I feel like with the informed commitments, it's kind of like outside of yourself, and then it's coming in and molding you to be something that you may not have chosen for yourself. If given the option. You mentioned your job. That was certainly the same for me, and all the informed commitments that came with that, right? Like in order to make the money to do the things. And I feel like that in a lot of just relationships that are more required than they would otherwise be, invited or wanted if you had complete carte blanche with all your choices. And so I feel like the inspired commitments are the ones that you really want to have, because that's just kind of your higher perspective, and they're not as diminishing and make you as stuck as the informed ones. Yeah. So I'm looking at commitment and I'm thinking like I think a lot of people associate it with like relationships, right? Or just like commitments to other people. Like parents committed to things that they do for their kids, or like a couple who's like committed to, we got to do this thing on this day at this time because we got to spend time together. And we feel this too. It's important to have integrity with other people, but how do you kind of contrast some of that like with the commitments to yourself, which I don't see as much of out there, like people honoring their own integrity and actually filling their cup, right? So what's the balance there, and what's the kind of importance factor?
Yeah, what came to mind when you were just talking about that was like you can't pour from an empty cup. So as much as you want to be there and be everything for everybody all the time and 100% on, it's just, I don't really think it's possible, especially if you don't first treat yourself in that way. So I think it's hugely important, one, to just honor and respect yourself. It's like treat other people how you'd want to be treated. Okay, well, treat yourself how you want other people to treat you. So that's when it comes to commitment, it's kind of like, if people see me respecting commitments to myself, and that in some ways gives them, they see permission or desire to, hey, I want to do that. Like, it looks great how Reed's committed to going out there and living the life that he was meant to and spreading love. Like, how cool is that you're committed to that? And so I feel like honoring those commitments for ourselves and to ourselves really allows the space to really bring our gifts to the world. And if you're too busy worried about everybody else's, then it just is diminishing for what's possible.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And you know, speaking of diminishing, and you said earlier, like being overcommitted, right? Spreading yourself really thin. You just said you can't pour from an empty cup. I mean, with commitment, it seems so huge, especially so you can honor your inspired one. So let's put it in the context, because again, you know, it seems like a lot of us are making these informed commitments, and it is kind of sucking the life out of us to some degree, or some of our life force. And, you know, do we need to be putting ourselves through all that? I feel like a lot of people just aren't really using their no. And, you know, I wasn't using my no. I was just saying yes to things that, you know, I didn't feel inside myself.
Tell us about that. Like, because I do recognize that kind of was both of our old worlds of, you know, we're saying yes to all the wrong things and not, anyways, we weren't using our no. So tell us how that looked for you, or give them a little bit of a flavor if they're not familiar with how powerful the no is. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, so you have kind of like your sacred yes and your sacred no, and that's kind of like what you're gonna commit yourself to. And I mean, your heart self, like not your ego self or whatnot. But yeah, so I was just saying yes to something that I knew inside myself. I didn't feel like I was saying yes to a job that, I mean, it was a great job, but I was like defining my, you know, success in it, and just like what it meant to me from an outsider's perspective. And inside, I felt like I was just getting further and further separated from who I am and like what I cared about. So, you know, that's saying yes when you really mean no. And so, like, I finally said no, you know, and like that was my sacred no, right? And like planted my staff and said, all right, I'm going to start to honor, you know, my commitment to myself and what I really want internally. And then the world opened up. I mean, like, and I don't mean literally. Actually, the world shut down, but my world opened up, you know, like it really opened up from the inside out. And it was because I started to honor my no. And, you know, maybe you can touch on this, but like, I feel like that's a lot of us just in our relationships with our friends, our family, our loved ones, you know, our partners, like, just, you know, where does that play in? Because like we have to be able to take a stand so that we can still be fulfilled, you know, within ourselves. Because you said it, like, you can't, you know, you train others how to treat you by how you treat yourself, right? So if you want like your kids or your partner to, you know, love you like fully, then you got to love yourself fully, and that's super important. So, you know, like, what do you say about that? What do you say about honoring your no?
Yeah, I think that, you know, your ability, the power behind your yes is equally is tied to your ability to say no. So like, you really want your yes to mean something, then you got to give, you know, your no and really let that mean something too. And you go back to my world opened up when I said no. Well, what I also saw is like the world opens up when you say yes and you really mean it and you put your full like faith and effort behind that. And, you know, paint the picture with us, it was like, you know, we'd said yes to being unfulfilled and diminished for quite a while. And then we finally said, we're going to go out and travel the world. Like we gave that like our, you know why? Because we wanted that freedom to kind of go back to what's important to us. So we said yes to that. We went yes. And that was challenged when the world literally shut down as we were going to go travel the world. But you know what? It didn't even really matter. The how kind of looked a lot different, but we still had given it our sacred yes. So we were just full steam ahead, and our sacred no was like, even though it was an opportunity and something that maybe we could have stayed back and stayed in that life that we were living, our sacred yes was a sacred yes, and our no was like a see you later. So I think that's pretty powerful.
Very, very powerful, the power of yes. We're going to be talking about that on the Friday Fundamentals show in a future episode. I want to talk about like another thing too, because, you know, people think commitment, and I feel like it's got this connotation of it's like a really big thing, right? And you know, like, oh, I got to honor the commitment to, you know, like my dreams or my job or, you know, my family and all this, and that's great. But like whatever it is you're striving for, like your what or your why, I mean, you know, your vision for what your life holds, how do you kind of like honor the small commitments, or like what's the importance of the smaller commitments, the ones that you make on the day-to-day, and honoring those? Because I feel like, I mean, I know for me it's real easy to just say, you know what, I'm tired this morning and I'm just gonna like stay in bed and I'm not actually going to do this. Or it would have been really easy for us to punt on this show and bring it to you next Friday, because we've honestly had an exhausting last several days and, getting back to Costa Rica here. And yet, we're doing the small things, and that, accumulates and leads to the fulfillment of the larger commitment. So just speak to that, like the phrase having faith in the little.
Yeah, how you do anything is how you do everything, and that's what first comes to mind with the little is you can have these grand ambitions and big ideas, yet if you don't take the little step, one at a time, you'll never get there. It's like, you can't, whatever, Rome wasn't built in a day. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. These are all things to say, like, it's great, have the vision, have the direction, have the commitment to the larger idea, but recognize, like, you'll never get there if you don't take that first step. So even if it may seem little, or like you said, yeah, I'm gonna, press snooze and I'll do it tomorrow. But it's just, that's punting on all of the things that are possible right now. So if you just focus on the right now, in the present, do what you can today, control what you can right in this moment, then having faith in that really allows you to see, have faith in the bigger picture and know that one step at a time, you'll get to where you're wanting to go.
I love it. And we love elephants, by the way. We're not
eating an elephant.
No, but it's just an expression.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. So, that's great. And having faith in the little, hugely important, honoring those small commitments. And that gives you the, because you get a few of them done, it gives you the momentum, right? And that's the key to success as you move forward. So, one thing I see a lot of people, and this was true for me as well, still is like I get hung up on doing it, like my way or the right way.
You don't say. Wow.
Just before
what a
this
revelation.
take, guys, just before this take. So this is real time here. But you know what, like, with commitment, I feel like there's, especially like the all in, like 100%, you're going to break through the walls for it. Like, do I really need to know the how it's going to be fulfilled, or like, do I really need to do it the right way? And can you maybe like just help me understand what's the most important, like, kind of thing to do with commitment?
Yeah, I mean, there's no, in some cases it can be a right way, but the only thing that makes something right or wrong is if it works or doesn't work given where you're trying to go. So that's what I hear when, worrying about doing something the right way. Well, there's many ways to do most things. So if you focus on taking make the decision to keep making decisions and just move forward, then you're going to either eventually get to where you're trying to go, or at least be able to pivot and take a new direction or alternate the course. And therefore, there is really no failure in that sense. Is you're making your commitment, you're taking the action to move towards it. Then don't get caught up in making it perfect, or else you'll never get anywhere. You'll just it's going to complete inaction. So I think there's power in taking the steps and moving forward, and just not worrying about what's right or wrong.
Yeah, that's great. Because I mean, a failure is a huge part of your growth, and that's how you keep driving yourself forward. As you said, make the decision to keep making decisions. As long as you're committed to heading in your direction, right? So your vision and commitment are both a direction. You'll get there by taking the steps.
All right. So one last question, as we go take commitment inside out. I feel like when it comes to, giving it our all, committing fully to something, there's still the element of being human, and sometimes we mess up, or sometimes, even when you're giving it your all, you might fail. It's like the idea of, falling off the horse. You're going to get back on, and you're going to be like, I suck at this now, and I'm not, I give up. So like, what do you have to say as far as, when you're fully committed to something and maybe you misstep or mess up, like how do you give yourself grace, and then also maybe even use that to recommit and reprioritize?
Yeah, I mean, giving yourself grace is hugely important in commitment, because you get bucked off that horse and you keep getting on, and eventually your groin gets sore and you're like, man, I don't know if I want to get back on that horse again today. And this happens both, internally, and those commitments you make to yourself, and, the ones that you make to others, right? But it's commitment is owning your integrity, and it's that important on both fronts. And so giving yourself grace is basically saying, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, life didn't end because you failed, today, but you have the present moment. You always have the choice, to honor the commitment, to stay the course, to, start going in the direction again and again. It's that perseverance, but more so it's just honoring the love that you are and coming from that place. And so if you give yourself that grace, it's just an allowance, right? It's an allowance that it's supposed to be fun and we can all embrace that and have fun. So I think we've sufficiently turned commitment inside out. What do you think?
Sure.
Okay. Well, then up next, guys, we have our fundamental questions on commitment. So stay tuned. All right, it's time for the fundamental questions. Guys, the answers are in the questions. You want to know something, ask yourself the questions, then ask again. So these are the 5 questions that we ask ourselves regarding commitment. That helps us, find the answers within us. And without further ado, here we go. All right, question number 1. Is this an inspired or an informed commitment? Remember, inspired commitments come from within you, from your heart. It's what you're meant to bring. It's your purpose, right? And so you're going to have this internal drive and motivation to honor those commitments. Whereas informed ones are coming from the outside in. You're serving the agenda of someone else or something else that's outside yourself. Those can often be more diminishing and really kind of suck the life force out of you versus you're the source, right, with the inspired ones. Question number 2. Will saying yes or no to this move me in the direction of my commitment? So of course we've got, our sacred yes, our sacred no, and these are, we're going to honor that, right? If I'm giving my yes, it means I'm all in, I'm fully behind that commitment, and I'm going for it, and unwavering in it, because it's moving me in the direction of what I'm committed to. The flip of that, but it's 2 sides of the same coin, is you also have to be able to say no. There's power in no. Otherwise, we can get ourselves spread so thin that we won't be able to honor these commitments, honor these sacred yeses. So equally important, is to acknowledge you have a no, and it's not your responsibility to commit to anything and everything. If it's not furthering the direction that you're going, just say no. Question 3, am I honoring the commitments I made to myself as much as those that I made to others? I mean, these are equal importance, right? Commitments to yourself, the ones that that you have internally, that you're holding yourself accountable to each and every day. That's how you're filling your cup. This is part of being fulfilled. It's part of self-care. In order to, honor your commitments to other people and show it fully for them, which is important. You have to also have a full cup so that you have something to pour. And it's just very much important to honor your integrity, both with commitments made to you and commitments made to others. Question 4, am I confused or am I certain? In a true commitment, there is no uncertainty. You're 100%. There's no foot out the door. If you leave yourself an out, then you're going to sow seeds of confusion, of resistance, of doubt, and all of those things are just going to show up as a lot of chaos and a lot of kind of feeling of being more confined and limited. Whereas when you're all in, when you're 100% committed, you're free. That really is freedom on the other side of that full commitment. So if you're confused, you might want to check yourself. Are you really committed? And question 5 on the fundamental questions on commitment. Is this commitment adding weight or dropping weight? We're talking about both time and heaviness here. So if we're adding weight, right? I mean, we're just prolonging something. We're kicking it down the road. We're becoming more sluggish. We're becoming more stuck, right? And it's just like, it's making us just like smaller and smaller and smaller. And less and less mobile and willing to take the action. But if we're dropping the weight, we're shedding our attachments. We're removing that weight from our shoulders, the things that are holding us down, that are keeping us small. We're getting up, we're taking the actions, we're honoring the commitments because they came from within us, and we're inspired to get up every day and go get it done. So, are your commitments adding that weight, or are they dropping it? These are the fundamental questions on commitment. We'll give you a second, pull out your phone, or take a screenshot.
Welcome back to the Friday Fundamentals Show with Fire Up Nation. We are sitting down with our guest, Paul Goldschmidt, to talk about commitment this week. Paul is, for many, known for his skills on the baseball field. He is first baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals. This is the start of his 11th season in Major League Baseball. Happens to have gotten into the All-Star game a total of 6 times. He is a 6-time All-Star with 4 Gold Gloves and 4 Silver Slugger awards. I know it's a lot, and clearly you can see his commitment on the field. But I know him for his huge heart, and he is an absolute rock star off the field too. His level of commitment off the baseball field is just as incredible as on the field. He is a wonderful husband to my sister, also the father of 2, devoted Christian, philanthropist, avid reader, and just all around an amazing dude. And we're so happy to have him on the show. So Paul, thank you for being here. We could think of no better person to talk about commitment. So we will just dive right in. That's good for you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
can you just walk around and introduce me to all my friends? That would be awesome.
It's hard, man. You got lots of things.
That's nice.
You even had a good joke.
You made me sound good.
Did I cover all of my bases?
Nice. Yes, I hope so.
I was thinking through that. I was like, that's a good one.
That was good. Nice.
We got to get that one in there. That was good.
All right. So to dive right in, whenever you hear the word commitment, what does that mean to you?
I think to me, it just starts with kind of probably more being true to your word. Whatever you say you're going to do, just do it. So, and whether that's to yourself, kind of in your mind, you make a commitment to get up at a certain time or to be somewhere, or if you actually tell someone you're going to do something, to follow through with it. Not saying that plans don't change and stuff like that, but that was something that was really important to me. It was stressed to me from my parents, and probably to a fault, something I want to make sure I live up to and stay committed to.
Yeah. Would you say that there's different levels of commitment? Or, because I hear you talked about, staying true to your word, and that, to your point, is easier for some of the smaller things, but when it's pretty big, I just wondered if you saw a level of commitment.
Yeah. I think you have to decide where your priorities are. Mm-hmm. And so, whether that's family first or your job or friends, you got to see what it is. Let's just say a hobby versus your job, you got to decide what's more important, or is your family more important than the job, or, stuff like that. So being committed, I think you could definitely rank your commitment levels. And then I think the trick, right, is not overcommitting yourself so that then you're not true to your word. And so that's something I strive hard to do, know what my top priorities are. For me, a lot of that is just spending time with my family. And then, obviously I'm committed to my job as a baseball player, committed to my friends and family, and then, the hobbies and the fun stuff and all that kind of is down the line. So not kind of committing myself to make plans to maybe travel, when it's not baseball season, because then I'll lose some of that commitment to my family, to not make plans for some of these other things, maybe that are fun things that I really enjoy because I've made a commitment to my teammates or, to the St. Louis Cardinals, to pay me and to be ready to go. And so I think just balancing those and being, aware that what those priorities are, and so that you're not overcommitting yourself and then, break your commitment, because we only have so much time in the day.
That's right.
And you spoke to a lot of the commitments that you've made, to other people, right? Like to your family, to the team. How you're committed to the community and your faith. What about the commitments that you make to yourself? Can you speak to some of those that you've made, and that how do you honor those commitments that are internal?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the main commitment I try to do to myself, to myself, is to just do the best I can, and that's whatever it is. As a father, as a husband, as a brother, as a friend, as a teammate, just as a person, my best isn't always. It's not always the same either. You're still going to make mistakes. We have bad days and stuff like that, but um, it's something I try, again, to a fault. Sometimes we can all be hard on ourselves when we make mistakes and stuff like that, or you don't live up to your own expectations, but that's part of it. And having the grace to forgive yourself, and obviously forgive others as well. And so um there's some inner qualities that I believe, that things I want to be. And I kind of talked about honesty, stuff like being on time, which to me is just another form of honesty. If you say you're going to be somewhere at a certain time, um the way you treat people, certain things like that, those are the commitments. I don't know if I've ever verbalized those, but just in myself, what I feel, I value. And somebody's could be completely different than mine. Just someone else being on time might not be that important, and that's fine. But they have other commitments that might be more important, and just understanding those. And again, trying to do the best I can, but understanding that we're going to make mistakes, we're going to come up short, and that's okay. Learn from that, and you can move forward.
Yeah, you spoke to something I want to touch on a little further there. When you said, I mean, you're a busy guy, you got a lot going on, and sometimes it's difficult to honor all of these various commitments. You might, even have to decommit, right, to stay true to the integrity that you spoke to. What's you mentioned a phrase, give yourself some grace, right? And a lot of people aren't really familiar with what that is or what that looks like in their life, but we find it hugely important. Can you just kind of tell us what that means to you? Like, what does giving yourself some grace actually mean?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about commitment. I mean, we all want to. It's like our goal is perfection. Our goal is this greatness, but it's probably for the most part out of reach, right? I mean, you want to be this ideal version, but knowing that it's not really possible. Just to use the baseball analogy, I mean, I'd love to hit 1,000, but we know that's not realistic. But doesn't mean you're not trying to get a hit every time you're in there. So then when you do strike out, or when you do make a mistake, or where you are rude to someone, or when you are late, or don't honor your commitment, or whatever it may be, um, just like you said, giving yourself some grace that we are human. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And, my parents talk about it a lot. I mean, it's not, the mistakes don't define you. It's how you react to them. So if you make a mistake, or something happens, break a commitment, then you have a chance to, make the best of that situation. I think that's kind of that living in the present, not being defined by this past, and not looking too far in the future, and just kind of, staying with it, reacting to each situation, and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, like I said, we're going to make mistakes, but it's part of being human. I think, sometimes we give other people, you try to put yourself in someone else's shoes, people, we talk about in baseball, like, how do you deal with this failure? I know we're not talking about baseball here, but that's like a lot of things, is like, well, I've never looked at a teammate and blamed them for a loss, but I've blamed myself for hundreds of losses. Like, how does that logically make sense? So I think you take that outside of baseball, whatever that is. I've, never looked at somebody else like that, but I blame myself. And sometimes we're very hard on ourselves. I mean, that's a driving factor that's, really beneficial to, have created, driven people to do some great things, but, it can also be your downfall too. So just finding that balance.
Yeah, I know. I struggle with being hard on myself. I can totally see that. Going back to on baseball, you said, of course you want to hit 1,000. So like on that notion, but you like, it's the little commitments that you make. You show up every day, you work really hard, you're striving for that, even knowing it's likely out of reach. So what can you speak to the importance of like the, the littler commitments, being like, oh, I'm just committed to go run today, so I'm going to do that. Like if you don't, they add up. But if you look at one by itself, maybe it doesn't seem that bad. So what does that look like to you, the little commitments, and how do you follow through on those?
Yeah, I mean, we maybe have some end goal that we're wanting to get to, and for me, I can just relate it to baseball because that's what I do all the time. How are you going to make the All-Star team or win the World Series or wherever it may be? And you almost have to work backwards to what's that going to look like today? Wake up at a certain time, get to the gym, not miss a set in the weight room, have full focus in the batting cage, do this, and there's kind of like a plan. And that's what I'm committed to. And then kind of let the results and what come from that be. So a big thing that I've really committed and basically put my whole career into as a baseball player and probably even outside of baseball is just like controlling the things I can control. So, my attitude, my work ethic, and like you said, doing those little things, understanding. So to me, it's not, I guess this would be the true commitment. It's not a choice. You're not waking up and like, oh, do I want to do this? Do I want to wake up in my alarm? Do I want to do it? No, it's like, there's never a choice. Of course, I don't want to do that sometimes. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But that commitment is, I don't know another way to say it, but that's what I've committed to. That's just what I'm doing. And whether I love it or hate it, I've made that commitment. And then, we can move on. I mean, I think back to a kid, my parents always talk about whether we played sports or anything we agreed to do. You had to follow through with that. I mean, you couldn't quit halfway through, whether it was playing an instrument or taking a class or going to a friend's house or whatever. And so I think just that was preached to me at a very young age. And that's, just stuck with me.
So commitment is all in. That's something we had talked about earlier. You're pretty much cutting yourself off from other options, right? It sounds like you're just going to show up and do no matter what, even if you don't want to.
Yeah, that's good. You use the word true commitment, and I don't really have a choice. So that's like, that's completely a must at that point. So that's like a kind of a grander level of commitment. Speaking back to these little things, the practice, the repetition, the have faith in the little comes to mind. We found that doing those small commitments and honoring those, leads to momentum. And we've heard a lot of people express that the key to success is momentum. We found that to be true at Fire Up Nation, but maybe you can kind of speak to the momentum that the Cardinals had toward the end of the last season and just kind of give us some flavor for, what does that feel like and how do you kind of keep that momentum going, especially in the context of a historical win streak. That was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew. Then we try to do it more often. I mean, that's the crazy thing. I think that kind of speaks to creating that momentum is it starts with the little thing. You can't, you're talking about when we won 17 games in a row as a Cardinals record, an organization that's been around 100 years. I mean, we didn't set out to win 17 games. We were like, all right, I remember, we had a lot of big games coming up, but we were saying, all right, if we can just win 2 out of 3 of these, then we can win 2 out of 3 again and just kind of keep kind of chipping away because we were pretty far behind about 4 or 5 teams in the playoff race. And then all of a sudden we won the first game. It's like, all right, great. We won the next game. And then the mindset was like, all right, well, we might as well just try to win this game. And we did. And then it was like, okay, that was over. And now it's just, okay, if we can just win 2 out of 3, these next 2 out of 3 games, okay, great. And then we won the first one, like, awesome. Won the next one. Okay, well, we might as well try to win again. And then it just kind of carried on and on and on. And then also I was like, wow, we just did almost the impossible. We won 17 games in a row. So, to your point, that momentum and honestly, just to speak about that situation, if we have baseball fans, it started a few weeks before that. We had started to play better. We hadn't won 17 in a row, but we had won a few series and we had been playing better. And then all of a sudden, you just get on that roll and it's easier. We all want to accomplish great things. We got this amazing goal, whatever, run a marathon, save a bunch of money, win the World Series, read so many books, graduate from college, whatever it may be, but you have to just take it day by day. And that's a huge thing. You have to just do it that first day. You can't, look ahead and sometimes those small things turn into big things. That's those habits of doing it just daily. So you're always balancing that. And I'll just use baseball. Like, of course we want to win the World Series or you want to make the All-Star game or some stats, but kind of like talked about, you got to backtrack. So I just got to just do my best today. And then really even before that, okay, I just got to do my best this first hour, then the next hour, then this inning, then that. And then all of a sudden you're like, a year later, like, oh man, that was an awesome year. And that's kind of how I look at it. Like, I don't look at my stats. I really just focus on what I have to do in that moment. Maybe I've got 3 strikeouts, but I got a 4th at bat coming. I'm not like, oh man, well, this day's terrible. I'm like, no, let's just have a good at bat this 4th one. And then all of a sudden, like I said, at the end of the year I'll look at my stats and see how it turned out. I'll be like, man, that was a good year. That was awesome. I never even thought about it. So that might be something to just, encourage people just to do it day by day. It doesn't feel like you're making any progress, but then all of a sudden you look up in the long run and you made huge progress. It's hard to do something amazing like that. You need time to do it and create those habits.
One thing I heard in that too, yeah, because that's super powerful. And you even spoke outside of baseball, but in all the examples, everybody had a what, or some sort of vision, some grand intention, that they were operating under. So, we like to think of like commitment as a direction, but you don't necessarily even know the how, right? I mean, but you take the steps, and then eventually, it'll show and it'll pay off. Whether it's momentum or this win streak, but yeah, I mean, do you feel like you don't need to know the how? Like, as long as you've got kind of the focus and the drive on the bigger picture, and you're willing to take the steps.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, you don't need to know exactly how you're going to do it, but I would assume you know somewhat of the how, or else you might be going in the wrong direction. So, you might not know exactly, but if I know what I need to do today, that's all I can do. I can't do tomorrow's work today. So, I mean, that's a big thing for me, is very much just staying in the present. I can't do this afternoon's work in the morning, so it's like, even at, let's just say my life at a baseball game, I don't think about baseball until I go to the field, which is usually in the afternoon. So in the morning when I'm with my family or I'm doing something else, I'm not worried about the game. But once I show up to the field, then I'm at baseball and I'm not worried about my family, or I'm not worried about what's going on tomorrow. And so that's that mental thing that I think just being that moment allows you to be 100% focused, 100% committed to what you're doing right there. Then you're going to do that at a high level. And then you're going to move on the next thing and do that at a high level and instead of doing everything at this average level because you're a little bit distracted, you can do everything, even if it's the wrong thing. If you do it at a high level, you're probably going to be moving in that right direction, even if your how might be off. To your point, if you're doing it, if you're very present and you're fully committed to it and you're doing it to the best of your ability, that's going to be better than doing an average job, the right thing in an average way, because you're a little bit distracted.
Yes, in some ways it's kind of like make the decision to keep making decisions. Like, the only way you're going to learn or know it's the wrong way even is to kind of just move forward. And I felt like we've experienced just kind of keep saying yes, keep going. And, if we need to change courses or whatnot, but if you're committed to yourself or whatever that vision you have, then at least you're going somewhere. So
yeah, I was gonna say, you guys know all about that.
Yeah, sure do.
We know a little something about that.
Yeah. You said something too I liked about how when you're at home, you're at home. When you're at the field, you're at the field. Like, just that fully being present. And I think with commitment, it's kind of a cool thing I hadn't thought about, kind of compartmentalizing. Like, you can't solve all the world's problems every day. I mean, as much as you want to, influence and be impactful in all that you do, it's kind of like you can't do it all at once. So at least when you're committed to your family, and that looks a certain way, and you're committed to the baseball field. And so I think that's pretty powerful too, is to not have the weight of the world on your shoulders, but show up your best every day and every way. So that was pretty cool.
Well, I wanted to touch on something too, because you talked about, when you're talking about the winning, you talked about meaning the win streak, the 70-game win streak. You talked about you had this mindset, right? We've actually got a master class coming out. It's called From Waiting to Winning. The waiting kind of paradigm and making the shift to the winning one, where the waiting is, you're kind of stuck. You're not really taking the action. You might be living from the outside, not living from your heart and going after what's really important to you, and, not making the commitments and not honoring them. But then the flip of that is kind of this winning mindset, which is out there creating the life that you really want, the one that's in your heart. So I'm just curious, what's your take on having kind of this winning paradigm, or just feeling successful from the inside out? That would be another way to say what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, you're kind of thinking, how are you thinking, right? How are you thinking about yourself? And I mean, Look, I mean, we're talking about our opinion, right? Like, how do you feel about, oh, I feel happy? Or, I mean, sometimes there's a feeling, but I'm a failure. I'm a success. I'm awesome. I'm horrible. Those are just opinions. And so I think, one, we get to realize they're an opinion. So if I have a thought, I'm horrible, I stink at baseball, I'm a terrible father, I'm a horrible dad, whatever. Or the flip side, I got it all figured out. Like, those are just opinions. They're not true. So once you realize that, you're kind of free from letting those define you. But also knowing I mean, you probably are going to define yourself in some way. So if it's an opinion, you might as well just give yourself a good one. Like, I'm great, not in an egotistical way, but like, you can, it kind of starts with that thought about yourself in the less judgment to then that you can then move forward. Because if you go in with a mindset of possibility, of opportunity, of potential, probably might even be a better word, because we really don't know what the future holds. This everything opens up for you. And I mean, the science behind that is crazy good. You read about these books where just being in the right mindset, people perform better in sports, on tests, all these things. And so just by kind of understanding that, I think can be really powerful. And probably back to, like you said, giving yourself some grace. I mean, we don't want to be so hard on ourselves. And if we are, understanding that that's just your opinion. It's not a fact. When you see that so much, I'm gonna go off on this, but just so much in the world is opinions. I mean, then it just gives you the freedom to see that that's not one day you're great, one day you're horrible. I mean, that's not your true self, to kind of what you guys are saying. Your true self is whatever you really say it is and what you do. So it's kind of a long-winded answer. I don't know if it answers it, but I think it starts kind of with that mindset, and just, knowing that, you are going to do your best. You are going to go out there, and if you fail, that's all right. I mean, failure is great. It's an opportunity to learn. I mean, it stinks in the moment, but if you never fail, you're never going to get better. And so that's just all. I mean, every time you feel like, that's great, what can I take from that? And now I'm going to move forward. And then that's how you kind of get there.
Yeah, what I in that heard is like, it's life's not happening to you, it's happening for you. So like when you lose, you can either be like, oh, I suck and my life's terrible, or wow, like that there's now something I can learn from and take away or do different or do better. And so even just changing the context of your life and what happens to you as I'll be working out for something better, then I think that's pretty powerful. And even shifting your life, shifting your career. Like at first it might seem like you don't know anything, and if you're willing to fail, that almost makes you that much more successful because you're following your heart and you're just taking the action. So that's super cool. Speaking of what, you're currently still playing baseball. You have a few years left that you're at least probably going to keep playing, but what are you most looking forward to, after your career? What are some causes or things that you're, passionate about and you're excited to spend some more time?
Probably just spending time with my family right off the bat, doing those things that we just don't get to do during the season. But as far as like work type stuff, I mean, I'd love to do something like in Christian ministry and with sports and kids. So I've had some ideas, different ideas with baseball camps and wrapping that up into something, or maybe like some mentorship programs. But, I always loved sports. Just from such a young age. I had great coaches, I had great, teammates. And I think sports are such a great metaphor for life, not because you need to make it your career. The fact that I get to play baseball for a job is, the craziest thing I could ever think of. But the fact that I was involved in a lot of sports or, other things, there could be, musical instruments or art or all these things, they teach you those life skills that you need as you grow up. So I'd love to, Amy and I are really passionate about helping kids and trying to give back. And so I think kind of wrapping up, kind of the things that I feel most passionate about, helping those in need, helping kids. There's a lot of people that, are, I feel I'm very fortunate that are less fortunate in serving them and, being able just to use, what God's given me to give back. I mean, that's where I'd love to be.
You're in such a powerful position. You're so great at what you do. You have such a good head on your shoulders. A lot of people look up to you as a leader and just as a person. But having the opportunity to talk to these kids, like, is there something that you've learned over time that you wish you could go back and even tell yourself at a younger age? just about really anything, but the work that you've done, the things that you've learned to get you to where you are, to just maybe even like, hey, don't be so hard on yourself, or like just to go back in time, somebody that's aspiring to be somebody like you, what would you tell those type
Yeah, I mean, I get asked that question all the time. It's probably one of the top questions. What advice would you give yourself? There's really two things that come to mind that I tried to live out, and I think were really important. Number one is kind of I just say have fun with what you're doing, whether it's playing baseball. Baseball is not a job, it's not life or death. It is a game. And, even not many of us are in life or death, situations on a daily basis. There are people that are in that, whether it's in the military or other reasons or other things. I mean, let's keep some perspective. So a lot of times the first thing I say is just have fun, enjoy what you're doing, have that mindset. You're a lot of times making the choice to do what you're doing. And even if you're being forced to it, no one can take away your attitude. So having that positive attitude, trying to make the best out of it, learn all those things. So I just say that simple as have fun, because a lot of it's like, hey, what advice for a baseball player? Number one, have fun. Number two would be work hard, because whatever you want to accomplish in life, it's going to take a lot of effort, to get better at playing an instrument, to graduate, to start a business, to be a baseball player, to accomplish anything. It's going to take hard work. And so those are the two things that I go to, that attitude, have fun, and number two, work hard. And I think if you do those two things, you're going to be successful. Even if you don't, live up to whatever goals you set, I think you're going to come out of that and feel successful and feel good about what you did, because you gave it your all and you had a good attitude, and there's nothing else you could really have done.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
And I know, it seems like you're got a lot of wisdom to share. And I mean, just in this conversation, you've been sharing a bunch of great stuff. I know you to be a voracious reader. So a question is, have you always been that way? And kind of like, what value do you get out of really reading a lot? And what recommendations would you have, or for some can't miss books?
Mm-hmm. I hated reading when I was growing up. I was a good student, but I mean, I didn't really read much. In a little bit in high school, one of my teachers kind of recommended some books. I feel like in school, they were forcing you to read books that you don't enjoy and write papers on it. And I'm like, this isn't fun. So I feel like once I kind of got out of college and now you start reading books, that you enjoy, that was when I kind of got into it. And then when I got to the big leagues, one of the guys who was a mentor to me, a guy named Ken Crenshaw, he's the athletic trainer in Arizona. He's like a second dad. He was, helping mentor me and bring me along as a young guy. And he just would give me books to read. One of the first books he gave me was Freedom Flight. It's this book about this guy. He was a prisoner of war, and basically about what he did while he was this prisoner of war for 6 years. He loved golf, and he would just visualize playing golf every day. And it was kind of his mindset. And, like I said, that book, Freedom Flight, was really the first one. That was he was trying to get me to do, to understand the power of my mind. And so I was like, man, this is amazing. Okay, this can help me be better at sports. Okay, at baseball, I'm going to do this. So I started reading a lot of these performance books or mental, early in my career, I didn't think a lot of people were working on their mental game, mental performance. And so I thought that was a way that I could kind of separate myself from the rest of people I was competing against. And that was something that I put a lot of effort into. And so reading books was an easy and a cost-effective way to do that. There's so much wisdom out there. And then I just kind of became obsessed with it. You see some of the books here in my background, but that's like my prized possession is my books, which is so dumb because they're not that expensive and I could reorder them all on Amazon tomorrow and all that. But I don't know, for some reason they hold a special place in my heart. So I really enjoy it. I've read anything from performance to history to all that stuff. So another book I'd probably recommend, a really good one, is called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, and Leif Babin is the other guy who wrote it. They're two ex-Navy SEALs. Just a great thing, kind of about commitment and owning all the decisions you make. There's so many other good ones that I've read. Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. He's written a lot of great books. That's another one. And, there's a book by Mark Batterson, probably his first book he wrote. It's called In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day, kind of a long title, but that's just a great book about chasing after your dreams and using your failures and kind of where you are now to get to, in his book, where God wants you to get to, and your God ordained opportunities in the future. So, but I love to read. I just order books all the time, and haven't read all of them. I got a lot of on my list to read, but just a great way to learn about anything and different subjects. And I mean, I just love it.
That's cool. And I actually just thought of a book that you had recommended to me. I think it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Oh yeah.
That was a great book, and it actually does kind of fit into this topic because, you have all these commitments, you're rushing all around, and you're keeping yourself busy thinking you're kind of, doing the right thing and staying committed. But, that book speaks to like being still and actually just being present. And it's been good so far. I haven't finished it, but it's really a great book. And also what you touched on is you love to read and learn. And I think that that's something that I see very much in you, is just your like constant desire to grow. And that's pretty, powerful, even with somebody that, seems to be so successful and doing all the things, and you could have probably little wants in your life. At the same time, you're always, reaching further and like pushing yourself harder in a good way to keep learning and growing. And just want to say, that's really cool to witness, and thank you for being that example.
A lot of people, they hear commitment and they're like, I'm gonna do this. I'm unwavering. I'm gonna break down walls, and I'm gonna just do all the things. But then they realize they've overcommitted, or it doesn't feel like something they want to be committed to anymore, right? So it kind of people can give their yes, or their sacred yes, but then you've also got your no. And I'm just curious, like, one, how do you use just the power of no, right? And own that in the realm of commitment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the power of no is equally as important as the power of yes, what you're committed to, because there's so many opportunities, there's so many different ways you could go. And I think that commitment, I mean, that's the hard thing, is to not get off of what you first said yes to. So by having to balance that so that you don't waver, and if you don't say no, then you're not going to have the time to stay committed to what you said yes to.
I am curious of just like at the core, like what inspires you, and what would you like to see more of in the world? Right now there's a lot of negativity we talked about. There's a lot of people's opinions, people wanting to be getting others divisive and just fighting and arguing all the time. But like, what do you want to see more of, and what just is inspiring to you?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily true, but I think, like you said, there's so many opinions out there, and if people are so arguing, we'd love to bring people together, but you look at the history of the world, and I don't know if that's really happened, but now I'm getting kind of negative about it. So I think the biggest thing on that, is just do what you can do, right? I mean, we can't change the world unless the best way to change is to change the people, change us if we need to, and affect the people around us. I can't affect people that I don't know. I can't do all these things. So, I have to treat people how I want to be treated. I think that's the simplest way. And so to just do that. And I think when you see people act in a very selfless way, that's really inspiring. So when, there's so much selfishness, there always is. Even myself, I'm plenty selfish all the time, but when you see people doing stuff for others, I mean, man, that motivates you, and that inspires all of us to do better. So, I mean, the ultimate example in my mind is Jesus with that. I mean, he said, love your neighbor as yourself. And I mean, if you believe what the Bible said, then, he's, a guy who died for all of us. So, obviously that's a very important part of my life, but even if you're not believing that, then I think we know that it's really powerful when you see people serving others and people sacrificing, for other people. And that can be really contagious, just especially, because it can be rare.
All right, Paul, one final question we have for you is, we know you'd be a man of faith, and just wanted to, get your take on the power that faith has in your life and what it means to you. So I don't know if you have anything to share on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's really important to me. I've kind of mentioned it, before. I don't want to push, my beliefs on someone else, but I think, in my beliefs in Jesus and God, knowing that the creator of the universe, is here, and he's got it all under control. And no matter what's going on, whether that's wars or pandemics or anything else, that, you know, there's a higher power up there that created it all and has it under control. You know, it gives you that sense of peace, that you can deal with it, and, you know, whether it's good or bad, that it's not just all random, that it's not just all chance. I know that there's many people that don't believe that, and that's fine too. I love all of them, and you know, but I think just knowing that, and kind of, you know, having that there is a plan for the universe, there is a plan for my life, there is a plan for everything that's going on. You know, that to me is really strong. And you know, even to speak on, you know, what the Bible says about Jesus coming in and living on earth, you know, there is that God's been here, and he's been through what we've been through. He's had the, you know, he's seen the hurt, he's cried, he's bled, he's done all those things, and he's with us and he loves us. That's a really powerful thing. And that, you know, he served us and he gave us an example of how we're supposed to live. And not that we are perfect. Again, I've mentioned that. And I think that's really something that's, you know, I feel strongly about. I don't have all the answers. I make mistakes all the time. I have a ton of regrets. I've got to ask a lot of people for forgiveness. But that's okay. And you got a God that, you know, the Bible says forgives us. And to me, that's awesome, and so loving, and so graceful, and set that example. And now we're supposed to do that, and we try to do it. And I mean, that could put the world in an amazing place. Is, you know, the more of that, the less fighting, the more love, the more truth. And you know, that's a big picture and a long-winded answer, but, you know, that's what I believe. And again, I respect everyone else that believes something different, and love them just the same, and try to treat them with respect.
That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, you touch on so many great things. Like, thank you for being on the Friday.
It was fun. This is awesome. We might have to do it again.
We are going to have to do it again. I mean, I got like a lot of topics in mind for you, Paul, coming up. Like, we're going to have leadership and faith and just so much good stuff. So we look forward to getting your insights and perspective again. And thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Well, give Jake, Emma, Amy big hugs and love from all of us. And we love you. And thank you again.
And with that, we will be right back with the Fundamental 5 on the Friday Fundamental Show. All right, it's that time for the Fundamental 5. These are the 5 key takeaways that we want you to have on commitment. So here we go. Number 5. On the other side of commitment is freedom. And commitments, it's an all-in, right? And when you're fully committed, you know, there's this freeing quality that comes with that. You know, you can be certain in what you're committed to, and it can just live in you, and then you can operate from that space. It's, you know, it's not kind of that confused state when you're really not fully committed, right? Where you may have one foot out the door, and so you're just inviting a level of resistance and uncertainty. And being fully committed is having that knowing, that certainty that what you're committed to, you know, you're unwavering, you're unmovable, and that's how, you know, you're able to be so free, and you're going out and getting it. And one more thing, there's a phrase that says 99%'s a bitch, 100% is easy. And that's so true with commitment, because if you have one foot out the door, or even one toe out the door, you know, you're giving yourself an out. You're sowing seeds of doubt. Whereas 100%, you know, full commitment, you can just go for it, and you can be free knowing that what it is inside you, you're going to get.
Number 4, be immovable in the commitment, yet unattached to specific outcomes. So commitment doesn't have to be rigid. It's about going with the flow. So many people get caught up in needing to know how to do something that they forget why they're doing it in the first place. Commitment is about the vision. It's holding where you're trying to go. It's the direction that you're headed, but you can let go of the how you have to do it every step of the way. You're really just making the decision to keep making decisions, to keep moving forward and staying committed to the commitment that you've made with yourself. It's about letting things unfold as they may, but no matter what, moving towards the direction that you're headed and the commitment that you've made.
Number 3, make inspired versus informed commitments. So inspired commitments, right? Those are coming from within you. You're essentially saying yes to something inside yourself, which carries with it, an internal drive and motivation that doesn't really exist when you're making commitments from the outside in. And you're at the source of it, right? So you can literally be accountable and be kind of inherently fulfilled because it's coming from within you, and that's just going to help you, accomplish the steps, right? Have faith in the little, get the momentum, and really carry that forward. Now, if you have informed commitments, just think about what that word means, right? You're taking information, and it's outside in commitments, and so it's literally molding you into something that somebody else wants. So you're serving somebody else in informed commitments. So make those inspired ones.
Number 2, commitments to yourself are equally as important as your commitments to others. So in either case, whether it's external or internal, integrity is a huge part of a commitment. It's saying something, giving your word to something, and then actually making that be true. And so often I feel like everybody is making commitments to something external, whether it's their family or their job or these extracurricular activities or, things that they're involved in, and they make a commitment and they keep true to that. Yet when it comes to themselves and, following that passion inside them, or things that are important to us as people, excluding anybody else, we so often let that fall on the wayside because of all of the commitments we've made external. But at the end of the day, it's just as important to be true to yourself and the commitments that you've made as the true you that's speaking to the deepest part of your wants and desires as a person. Those are just as important as the ones we made externally. So with commitments, we have to honor and respect and be in integrity with the commitments we made to ourselves as well.
And number 1 on our fundamental 5, commitment has a "this shall be" quality. This shall be. Sounds pretty certain to me, like you know it in your heart. In full commitment, an inspired commitment that came from within you. It's like that. You've cut off from all other options. You are full go for launch. And, there's a willingness at that point to be immovable, unwavering. Imagine what life would be like if you were just fully committed to what was inside your heart. And imagine a life built around that. I'm fully committed to empowering people to live in love and not fear. And do you know how much fire I have inside and how much drive I have within me? I'm 100% certain. I'm all in. It's a must for me. This shall be. And that's commitment. And here they are, the fundamental 5 on commitment. Pull out your phone. Take a screenshot. Clap, clap, snap, snap.
Well, that wraps up episode 4 of the Friday Fundamentals Show, talking about commitment. Special thanks to our guest, Paul Goldschmidt. I know I sure learned a lot, and hopefully you did too.
And we just want you guys to know that here at Fire Up Nation, we're committed to igniting the human spirit, to getting out there and filling ourselves up from the inside out with light and love, and just spreading that throughout the world. If you're committed to a similar vision, empowering others to live in love and not fear, then come join our community. We'd certainly love to have you, and let's connect. So we'll see you next time on the Friday Fundamental Show. Love you.
Love you.